Welcome, Facebook. Appreciate you being here. Our second technical difficulty, other than me not turning the microphone on, is that our interpreter, sign language interpreter, is not here today. We thought that they would be, but something must have come up. So we will have closed captioning, though, at the end today. So starting out, first talking a little bit about the cases, the number of cases, and then we'll talk about what's happening today. And then, of course, we will take your questions. Number of confirmed cases in St. Louis, 1,683, 100 confirmed deaths as of today in the city. In St. Louis County, 4,324 confirmed cases. These numbers are a little older. They're as of this morning. And deaths, 336. So we are currently hospitalized, 467 people. ICU, 121. Ventilators, 84. COVID patients discharged yesterday were 16, and the total number of patients discharged since the start, discharged from the hospital, 1,880. So those are the numbers. We're all getting kind of used to looking at those numbers. We continue to be on a downward trend, but we all have to work really hard as we reopen some businesses today to make sure that we are socially distancing or physically distancing, and also to make sure that we're wearing masks and that we're washing our hands, because this is a risky time as we begin to reopen a little bit. Today was the end of the 8th week of being on stay-at-home order. So that's been a long time. We recognize that. And we believe that we can crack the door open a little and ease into this, the reopening of some of our businesses, not all, some. And some businesses who can reopen are not, because they're making the choice themselves that they want to wait another week or two and see how things go. And that's perfectly fine and responsible. So today I actually have not been out during the day today out of my office, but this evening I am going to get around and see how many places are open, and hopefully see that people are socially distancing and being 6 feet apart. If not, we will pay those businesses a visit and try to bring them into compliance. That's always the first step. So for each of you, use your own judgment about whether or not you should be going out. I would say that for anyone who's a little older, 65, 60, 70, in that age range and up, or anyone at any age who has underlying health conditions, whether it be heart condition, whether it be a breathing condition, diabetes, high blood pressure, you really should continue to stay at home as much as possible. This is still a very contagious virus, and we recognize that we probably cannot all stay home for the next year until we get a vaccine. But those of you who are a little older, have some underlying health conditions, stay at home. Those of you who are choosing to go out, wear a mask. The employees should all be wearing a mask, and frankly, the customers, clients should all be wearing masks too. So with that, maybe I'll go straight to questions today.
Sure. Mayor, a couple of questions from your viewers are in relation to City Hall. Curious when City Hall will reopen, and in the meantime, what City Hall services are online?
City Hall's likely to reopen on June the 1st. That's 2 weeks from today. We have some employees back to work today. We still have employees working from home, of course. There are many City Hall services that are available online, from paying your taxes to filling out your assessments to renewing your business license, applying for a building permit. Many things are online, and more things now than there were, frankly, a little bit ago, and more people are using it, so that's terrific. There are many, you can even renew your driver's license online and your plates online. Now, that's through the state website. You can get a property tax receipt. You know how you have to have your personal property tax receipt in order to renew your plates? You can get that online. So a whole lot of things can be done online, and this stay-at-home order has caused some of us to learn a little bit more about how to do those things online. So,
Thomas is watching, Mayor, and his question is what testing capacity do you expect the city to have come August 1st, especially looking toward the new school year?
so testing is becoming more available all the time, not as quickly as we'd like, but it is becoming more available. We, excuse me, we did receive 20,000 tests that the city bought. Those have all been received now and distributed to the federally qualified health centers for the most part. In addition to that, some of you may have seen that, hang on 1 minute. Sorry about that. I just actually ate some crackers, so maybe that's, I shouldn't admit that, down the wrong pipe. Okay, that's better. So, what was I talking about?
We received 20,000.
Oh yeah, we got the 20,000 tests. You may have seen over the weekend that we have an RFP out to order another 100,000 tests. The response to that RFP is due back on Wednesday. So, we have 200,000 other tests ordered, which we ordered a few weeks ago. We recently learned they put our delivery date off and put it off and put it off. Now it looks like it's going to be the middle of June. So we are just pushing forward to try to have a lot of additional testing. We're going to be testing in congregate facilities, testing, of course, people that are symptomatic. We should have enough tests to test everyone who is symptomatic and loosen those guidelines a bit.
Kelly's question is, are the parking meters in downtown St. Louis still free?
As I understand it, the treasurer has kept the parking free for now. I don't know how long that'll go on. I heard on the news or radio the other day that it might be another week or two.
Another Kelly's question is can you please consider making masks mandatory for the public?
So what we're doing is making masks mandatory causes a real enforcement issue for the people who work and who are wearing masks, for the employees. We have been in touch with a lot of the bigger grocery stores and hardware stores who operate both in Missouri and in Illinois. As you might know, Illinois does have mandatory masks. And those stores are having a real problem with people in Illinois who are not wearing masks, and then they're approached by someone before they go into the store that says, hey, you can't come in unless you wear a mask. They're being spit on, they're being verbally abused, they're even being shoved and pushed sometimes. So we are actually trying to do this by persuasion and through, I don't know if you all have seen it or not, but we just posted maybe an hour ago on social media a new little 30-second video of various people wearing masks. And so I hope that you will all help us to spread the word that people should be wearing masks. And if you have some masks of your own that are disposable, carry them with you and offer them to people who may not have a mask on.
KD is watching, and her question is will city recreation be open this summer?
Right now, it does not look like it. pools are closed. We have not even hired lifeguards. The Red Cross is not doing lifeguard training right now. So parks will be open, but it does not look like recreation centers will be open this summer.
Jack's question, Mayor, is do you have any update today on when gyms can reopen in the city of St. Louis?
I don't. It's going to be a little while for gyms. I believe in the last couple of Facebook Lives that we've had, we've asked gym owners or gym managers to send us what they think the conditions should be for opening gyms. We will get there. We're just not there today, and hopefully we'll be there in a few weeks.
Johnny's question, Mayor, is what about private wedding venues for people who might be planning a wedding with quite a few guests over the summer?
So private wedding venue, maybe it's a banquet center, maybe it's just an event space that right now still have to remain closed. We are working with those event space operators, with hotel ballroom operators, with various cultural institutions to come up with some guidelines for opening those events. Those guidelines are this close to being finished. I just reviewed the CVC. Explore St. Louis is leading the effort on that, along with the Pandemic Task Force. And we are just about very close to being able to release those guidelines. But then the question becomes, when will they be able to open? And that date we have not nailed down yet. I will just tell you that it's going to be a few weeks. So will it be June 1st? Very unlikely. June 8th? Maybe. June 15th? Maybe. So that's the time frame that we're looking at. But even when those event spaces open, they will probably be opening in such a way that they can only hold 25% or so of the people that they would normally occupy there because of the requirement for 6-foot distancing. So that's a challenge for us. The Pandemic Task Force and the doctors at the major hospital systems really want to see a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. They'd like probably more, 4 to 5 weeks of data to see what happens. How are we doing today? How are we going to do tomorrow? You know, what's our behavior like? So this is within our control if we can just sort of control our own behavior. So it's going to be a few weeks.
Jerry's question is, can you report anonymously businesses that are not complying with our standards and guidance?
You can report them anonymously. You call 657-1499 or 622-4800. If maybe these are your employers and you don't want your employer to know that you're reporting them, I always recommend that you talk to your employer first to see if you can, work together and get into compliance. But if that doesn't work for you, then yes, 622-4800.
Robbie's question, Mayor, is what are the parameters in place to evaluate whether or not more businesses can open, such as entering like a phase 2 perhaps?
So there's the numbers that we're really watching are hospital admissions. We're running an average of about, this is the last 10-day average, of about 30 people a day being admitted to the hospital. Now that's way down from where it was a month ago. A month ago, it was probably as high as 50 people a day on average. We had days as high as 73 or 75. So we're watching hospital admissions. We're also watching the number of new cases. But we know that the number of new cases is not in and of itself indicative of the spread in the community, and that's because we've had such limited testing up until now. So hospital admissions is the most precise number that we're watching.
Are police officers required to wear masks? One viewer says they've seen several officers interacting with the public without wearing masks.
Police officers should be wearing masks when they're interacting with the public.
This is from Bev in Princeton Heights. She
Bev.
wants to know, in the wake of the fact that cure violence has been delayed in part because of COVID-19, how is the city addressing crime, a slight uptick in homicides and other shootings in the city? She's concerned about children and gun violence.
I am concerned about children and gun violence myself, as is the police department. Cure violence was slowed during this last 2-month period, just in terms of recruiting people and being able, it's an intervention model, and so being able to intervene. But that's ticking back up. Cure violence is ticking back up. The one neighborhood is getting ready to do the training for that in a couple of weeks, and 2 other neighborhoods are out for proposals, bids, for people to run the programs there. So we're ticking that back up. It's very, very worrisome. We have such easy access to guns. Anyone can carry a gun anywhere, anytime. We've seen some heartbreaking and horrific. A 3-year-old died last week one day, and found a gun, apparently. I don't know all the details, but that's what it looks like. Found a gun and ended up killing himself. And so, we have to continue to double down on this gun safety, keep guns locked up, etc. We also have to continue to try to help our police solve these crimes. It's a very complex issue here. And when you have a lot of people out of work, that doesn't help. We also have a lot of people who have been released from jail in order to try to reduce our jail population. And hopefully that's not causing us a problem, but there are folks that write to me and wonder if that isn't part of the problem. We just have way too much violence in our city, and we are putting it on police, of course, but we also have to really focus on the social services that we have to provide to people, and that's more and more difficult when our budget is going to have a $100 million hole in it. So all of that is said to say that this is something that we're working on every day. We have actually been thinking about some additional consulting on this in this regard, but we are trying our best, and the police are trying their best to intervene and to solve these crimes as they're happening.
Kristen's question, Mayor, she's watching. She'd like to know how the decision was made to allow bars in the city to reopen, and how can you socially distance in a bar that might also be sort of like a nightclub?
Well, bars have to have social distancing also. So most of the bars that I know of also serve food. Now, there was some discussion about what is a full meal. I don't know. Peanut butter and crackers might be a full meal one day, but so we decided that bars can open as long as they socially distance. The employees wear masks, encourage the patrons to wear masks, except obviously when they're eating or drinking. And so we really just have to pay attention to those. We are aware of a few establishments that have advertised, I guess, some parties on social media, and we are paying them a visit to be sure that they know what the rules are, and we're not trying to interfere with their business, but they do have to follow the social distancing guidelines or they won't be able to stay open.
Amanda's question, she's watching, Mayor, and her question is, can we vote by mail?
Can we vote by mail? Friday, the 15th, was the last day of the Missouri legislature, and they did pass a no excuse absentee voting, which is sort of like voting by mail. And you don't have to, if it's because of COVID or a medical condition, you don't have to have it notarized. Now, it's a 1-year thing, And the first election, I guess, that it will be effective for is probably, the first big election, is probably August the 4th. And we'll see when the governor signs it. Most bills are effective August 28th, but hopefully he will sign it sooner than that. But at least it would be effective for November for sure, assuming the governor signs it.
Do you know if the extended moratorium on evictions in the city has officially been signed by the circuit court?
I don't know if it's officially been signed, but certainly that's a step that we requested, and we would expect that maybe tomorrow it would be officially signed.
A question about temperature checking, which has been happening at City Hall, and it is a requirement of businesses to allow employees to come back. Do you think that's effective, especially since asymptomatic people can help spread the disease with no symptoms and no fever?
I think it's partly effective. It's not the only thing to do. We can't just take temperatures and then stop there. We have to take temperatures, we have to inquire about how people are feeling. We have to make sure that anyone who doesn't feel good is at home, goes home, doesn't come to work. We have to socially distance, we have to wash our hands, we have to wear masks. This is a whole continuum of things that we need to do. And taking temperatures is just one component of the things that we need to do in order to try to tamp down the spread or keep the spread down and have it go even lower.
I don't know if we addressed this today, but one question about youth camps, youth sports, and sort of summer activities for kids.
So last Thursday night, on the 14th, the CDC issued the guidelines for day camps, summer day camps. We are also in the process of saying that summer day camps will be able to open. We're working with them to figure out a date. It'll likely be early to mid-June, and under what conditions. And it's primarily CDC guidelines, plus some more guidance on employees, on kids. Now, you won't be able to have contact sports at camp. I jokingly said, and these were the kinds of camps I went to, where we made pot holders and did leather, made little leather pouches and things. But I think in today's environment, there'll be some enriching activities that involve computers, that involve learning a few new skills, that involve less contact sports sorts of things, because those really won't be safe.
We have a lighter question.
Lighter?
A lighter question from
For
Kevin.
Lida?
A lighter question for Lida. Kevin's question is where did you get your red lapel pin?
Oh, Kevin, I got a bunch of these. We ordered them. Send us a note, we'll send you one.
I don't know if we've addressed this today, but the lifting of gatherings of more than 10 people, has a decision been made about that? Or when that
Yeah.
might be lifted?
It's not lifted. It primarily applies to gatherings that you organize or that are at your home or in your neighborhood. It's a little confusing because certainly there'll be more than 10 people in a restaurant and there'll be more than 10 people at the grocery store. But this is a social gathering that you might like, maybe it's a birthday party or something like that. Those are still really not recommended. It just has to do with the more people that you bring into your circle. I mean, if you've been home, or maybe you've been home and just at work, if you are an essential worker, I hear a lot of sirens going by, then you've had a fairly small circle of people that you've been interacting with. And it's recommended that you continue to keep your circle of people that you're interacting with as low as you can. So that's the reason for, no block parties, no big backyard parties, in order so that you keep your circle closer.
Arlene's question is, and our ASL interpreter is joining us momentarily.
Good. How are you? You doing all right? Good.
Arlene's question, Mayor, is do you happen to know, speaking of the courts a little bit ago, do you happen to know when the courts will resume and when they'll reopen?
It's my understanding that the Missouri Supreme Court has said the courts will resume jury trials at the end of June. I don't know the exact date, but towards the end of June. And that, of course, it's changed a few times. So if you have jury duty, be sure to go online. They give you instructions there. Go online, check to see if you really need to show up, and watch for that, you know, whether or not that's going to happen at the end of June or not.
We have time for a few more questions. Casey's question today is large-scale outdoor venues and cultural institutions like the zoo and botanical gardens, when those might be able to reopen and what the regulations could look like when they do reopen.
So it'll be a few weeks before they reopen, and the regulations are, there'll be some general guidelines which will be issued here shortly. They're almost done. But then each institution or event space has to submit their specific plan to the health department. The health department will review that plan, maybe make changes to it, suggest changes, and once that plan is approved, assuming they agree to follow the general guidelines, follow their plan, and with an understanding that if we see an increase in cases, primarily in hospital admissions, that large venues will probably be one of the first things to be partially or fully, we don't know which, depends on the situation, closed. And so once that happens, then there will be a date in the not too distant future, a few weeks, that they will be allowed to open. Now, that's predicated on not really having a big increase in hospital admissions over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
We have time for 2 more questions. On the issue of the DMV and City Hall that we addressed earlier, Joseph's question today is, can we continue to push off license plate renewals?
That's a decision made by the governor, and I believe the license plate renewals now are pushed off until the end of June. We can get that exact date and post it in response to your question.
Okay, final question is from Lisa today. If we suddenly see a large increase in cases, will you close the city back down?
If we see a large increase in hospitalizations, absolutely, we will. That's frankly why we are asking everyone to go slow. This is not the time to, just go all out as if things were like they were before, because they're not. We still have a very contagious virus in our community, in our world, and so we have to take these precautions in order to prevent more people from getting seriously ill, hospitalized, and possibly with a deadly outcome. So yes, we will. We are asking people to go slow here and to take the precautions so that we don't have to do that.
We're out of time for today.
We're out of time. Thank you all. Really appreciate you tuning in today. Look forward to talking with you again on Wednesday. I think between now and Wednesday, we will be issuing some guidelines for restaurants that want to expand their outside seating, their outdoor seating. We're working on that right now. We've talked about this a couple of times on our Facebook Lives. And so restaurants I know are thinking about that. In some cases, they might use part of a parking lot that they control. In some cases, they might want part of a street. Restaurants and business associations will need to work with their aldermen on this, alderman, alderwoman, whichever. And in order to try to come up with something that is acceptable to both the residents in the neighborhood and the business communities in the neighborhood. So you can expect that in the next day or so. Thanks so much. Appreciate you tuning in. Thanks to everybody.